Hey, I'm Fei-Fan Balzer, and I'm here in the Brother booth, and we are going to be scanning and cutting, except we're actually going to be embossing. It's super easy to do. So it all starts in Scan and Cut Canvas or with any design you have, but when you buy the embossing starter kit, you get 50 free designs, and you can see a bunch of the line embossing designs here. There's also region embossing designs, and you can see I've just pulled up the butterfly, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send that wirelessly on over to my Scan and Cut, and then we can go right back over to the Scan and Cut. And when I go ahead and click on the button and push the wireless button, I'm going to go ahead and retrieve that file that we just sent over. So now, the way that the line embossing function works is you have this kind of puffy like padded mat, and that is so that you can push into it. And I'm using a sheet of copper, which then you can see here is sandwiched between two sheets of plastic, and that's so that you don't scratch the scanner glass that's inside. And I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to load that into my machine. And then of course, because it's the Scan and Cut, what would we be doing if we weren't scanning? So I'm going to scan that metal in to make sure that it's perfectly placed in exactly where I want it to be. So, you know, some people say thrifty, I like to say cheap, because I'm cheap, and I like to make sure that everything is lined up exactly right, and I'm really maximizing my supplies. So there it is right on the screen, and you can see I have my butterfly, and I'm going to drag it on. Because everything is completely customizable with the Scan and Cut, I'm going to be able to make that butterfly a little bit bigger. And you know what? I feel like saying this is a Julie butterfly, so let's go ahead and add the best name in the whole world with one of our built-in fonts. So I want it to be uppercase J, lowercase L-I-E. Okay, so next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to place that on here, but I actually am going to go ahead and I am going to flip it because I want it to be embossed or raised instead of debossed and lowered. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in a lot. Remember, you can zoom in up to 400% on your Scan and Cut. You can see it right there, so I can make sure that this is completely centered under my butterfly. So once I'm happy with my design, I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay. Now there's this thing here, and I've been yelled at because I like to call it the cardboard box, but I've been told it's actually the toolbox. So you're going to choose the toolbox, and there's two kinds of embossing, line embossing and region embossing, and I will explain the difference as soon as we get this bad boy going. So I'm going to choose line embossing, and the next thing that I'm going to do is where the blade is, I'm actually going to go ahead and put in my embossing tip. And if you look here, you can see that there are two different sizes of embossing tips, right? There's the larger one and the smaller one, and it doesn't really matter, there's not a right or a wrong, it's whatever you like. So I'm just going to lift out the blade right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop in my embossing tip right there. Brother logo facing you. As always, you can see it goes in, and then you just click it down. And then you can check your settings, you can change the pressure, you can customize everything. It is the Scan and Cut after all, baby. And once you're happy, you're going to go ahead and say emboss. And let's press start. Now the Scan and Cut is going to tell you that it's 3 minutes, and this is available for all Scan and Cut users. The time things, if you do the free firmware updates at scanandcut.com, your Scan and Cut can also show you how much time is left. So let's talk about the difference between line embossing and region embossing. I'm so glad you asked. You guys asked the best questions. So line embossing is if you took your hand and you traced around it, that would be line embossing. If you took your hand and you smushed it into wet cement, that would be region embossing. But you don't have to believe me because I actually have an example right here that I can show you. So on this cardstock in the background, you can see that's what's called region embossing, meaning I pushed my hand into the wet cement. And to do the region embossing, you simply use a template. And you can see it here, and you actually put the paper on top of the template, and then it pushes into the holes, and that's how it creates that wet cement, kind of look. However, with the embossing, which we're doing right now, right, which is the line embossing, it simply traces around, and you can see the debossing or pushed in, or the embossing or raised, and neither is right or wrong, it's just whatever you like. So if we look over at the machine, you're going to be able to see how easy, how quick, how beautiful that is. I mean, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, that it's etching or embossing rather into these metal sheets. Now, this is the copper colored metal sheet. You can also get a silver colored metal sheet, whatever your personal style is. And actually, if you look at the front of the table, you'll see a little embossing project. It's not that little, it's been blown up to an enormous size. But what that is there's a metal embossed sentiment, and the flowers in the background there, that's embossed vellum. So imagine the possibilities of what you can do when you have all sorts of embossing tools. So now, let's see, the scan and cut, of course, only electronic cutter out there with the built-in scanner, but not only that, so it cuts, it draws, it embosses. I mean, I think it's a pretty amazing machine. And the other thing that I think is super fun is if you look at this project right here, right, you can see we have a bunch of different materials. We've got cardstock, we've got plastic. You know, again, for anybody who's mixed media or interested in mixing a lot of materials, it's a great thing to do. So, are you ready for the greatest moment? So I'm just gonna go ahead and unload it. Now we're looking at the debossed side right now. So what I'm gonna do, and I always think the hardest part of this process is actually just peeling off the plastic that's protecting the metal. So they have these little tabs on it that are meant to make it easy for you to kind of pull apart so that you can grab a hold of that. And then this is super sticky plastic, so it has adhesive on it. You just wanna go ahead and peel that off, and then we're gonna peel off the other side as well. And what you will see, is it okay that I get overly excited about this? Look how cool that is, that butterfly, and of course, the fabulous name of Julie. And I could certainly put this, you know what I mean, on a room, on a door, on a whatever. And okay, just so you remember, this is the embossed or raised side. And then this is the debossed or pushed inside. And of course, if I hadn't reversed the name, you could use either side because that butterfly is so pretty. So, of course, with Scan and Cut, we have made embossing easy, just as we have made cutting easy. So I hope you'll give the embossing kit a try. It's pretty awesome. And remember, scanandcut.com and balzerdesigns.typepad.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to give our video a thumbs up and subscribe to Scrap Time videos on YouTube to be the first to see all our videos from Creativation.